We're here at JFocus. I'm ABK of Near4j. People know me as ABK. I'm also Andreas. And I'm here with Johannes from SAP. Yeah?
Yes.
Good to meet you, Johannes.
Hi.
Thanks for coming up to the Fika AI stage. So here at Fika AI, we like to just have open conversations about, of course, AI, technology, and now that we're at the JFocus, of course, there'll be some Java stuff as well as you'd like. And I understand that you're working on a fun project these days.
Yes, so I'm working on a fun prototype because I work on Submachine, which is like one of the good OpenJDK distributions out there. We're like the third biggest contributor to the OpenJDK. So we're like the people that bring you cool features. Like I, for example, did bring you the new CPU time profile in JDK25. And also what we're working on, of course, is on supportability tools, like on small tools that make your life a little bit easier. And one of these tools is JStall, that you might also be interested because it has slightly to do with AI.
So tell me about, is JStall like JSOL?
No, JStall is like, it's the answer to your questions. Why is my application currently stalling? And you throw it on and you give it like your JVM ID, and it tells like your application is probably stalling because.
Okay. And so this is a debugging tool, kind of like a co-assist.
Yes.
Okay, and how does it work? Take me through you've run into some problem and then.
So it's pretty simple. You have your application and it doesn't emit anything. For example, it doesn't emit any output, and you're like, what is it doing right now? So what my application does, it takes 2 thread dumps. Like a thread dump is a description of what your application is currently doing, what every thread is doing. You take 2 with a distance like of 5 seconds, and then you compare them, and then you see which thread does how much work. And it's pretty cool. And then what we can then do is we can just feed this information pre-analyzed into a local AI model, and it gives you a short overview of like, hey, your application kind of looks healthy, or hey, your application might just be stalling in this thread because this thread is doing a lot of work. Take a look into this. So it helps you get a first glance on your problems.
So this feels like something that's a combination of kind of static analysis tools plus a little bit of natural language for conversation. Is that what's happening?
Yes, kind of. So the idea is we pre-analyze, so we detect which threads are doing how much work and what's like the common thread stacks of every stack, of every thread. And then the cool thing is the AI summarizes the result, because we could give the user like this size of a result, and they will be overwhelmed because they just want to know why it's stalling. Is my application okay? But now the LLM takes our analysis and takes the knowledge it has like of the Java ecosystem that modern big LLMs have built in, and can parse this and be like, hey, here's a short answer. Thank you.
Yeah, and so this is one of the challenges, I guess. So for me, I end up living in lots of different languages, and I always struggle when I switch from one language to another. Like it's kind of the classic, same kinds of things can go wrong, but how it manifests is different. And also, like, okay, now that you know kind of how it manifests, there's a whole search tree of like, it could be this or this or this. And like, it's almost, I guess this is part of what you're addressing here. You can automate a lot of that because you can just kind of statistically know it's probably more this thing, and like there's a lot of other signals that bring in, right? So does it help collapse the overall debugging time about what's happening?
So the main issue, and it's still a prototype what we're writing, but the main issue is you get these thread dumps and you want to analyze them by hand, and you can do this, but it's quite cumbersome. So it was first to automate most of the analysis that you would probably do as a user in your mind. You're like, oh, this thread is doing the most time of the work. We can ignore this thread because it's blocked anyway. Or we have this thread is waiting on a lock to this thread. We can automate this, but the problem is you still have a big analysis. You still have to slightly, not dump it down, but like condense it. And LLMs are pretty good. And the cool thing is we can use a local LLM with Ollama. For example, I use the Quen 30 billion model, and it's pretty good, and it's reasonably fast and runs locally, so you don't have to share the data with like any cloud provider, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome. So you get some data privacy there, and like, you're not spending $100 of tokens just to do this debugging, right?
Well, it's not as expensive, but the main issue is when you do this with like actual data, your customer probably doesn't want to share the data with any cloud provider. So the idea is it's built in, and it's really cool. It's already out there. You can just Google for JStall and probably find it and try it out.
So this sounds fantastic. I, of course, am curious about like what's under the hood. How are you building this? I'm assuming this is built in Java, or is it
Yes.
in Kotlin, or okay.
It's built in Java, and there's a fun part with this project because we want to make this jar as small as possible. So I had to rebuild many of the libraries that you typically use, because using JSON library, it's 10 megabytes of dependencies. So I had to rewrite my own command line interface application, my own Ollama interface provider, my own JSON library. So it was a quite a fun project to do this. And now it's like under 400 kilobytes as a jar.
Oh my God, that's really nice. But so actually, it sounds to me like you might have two things that are available. Like the tool itself sounds great, but you also sounds like you have a nice kind of shell application that you could almost deliver. Is that separate enough?
Yes, so if you're interested in using a command line application or writing one, and you're like, I don't want to pull in like half a megabyte of Pico CLI, you can just use mini CLI, my CLI library that looks similar enough to Pico CLI in most cases, and use it. Of course, there's far less features, but I don't need that many features in my tools anyway, so you can just use it, and it's under 40 kilobytes in size. You can make tiny applications.
That sounds genius. I love that. Oh my gosh. And so, and for the Ollama part, like how are you packaging it? Like people have to download that.
Yes.
That's got to be up and running somewhere,
It's
right?
external. So my idea with LLM providers is you just have an Ollama running on your system anyway when you're doing local AI development, and just run it. Give my application like, you say, here's the URL, here's your port, and it does all the communication via the REST API.
Okay. And so then I'm going to assume it's OpenAI compatible. So I could point it at like OpenRouter or whatever else I'm using for hosting, or
It's currently just a prototype. I might implement this in the future, but currently the focus is more on the local models because of data privacy.
yeah.
Because this is kind of important with debugging applications, especially when later we might be using it on customer data. We're not doing it now because like it's a prototype. We're trying to explore the space of AI-aided observability tools. And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. The future will tell.
This is really fantastic. So actually, now you're gonna have to tell me what is the day job that you've? Is this like your main focus right now, or like what's the scope of your work?
So I work at Submachine, as I told you before, and I'm an OpenJK developer. So I, for example, worked the last few years on getting a new CPU time profiler in the OpenJK. So my day job is literally writing some C++ code, and I should get backporting some changes. Hi, Gus, if you're seeing this. I'm working on the OpenJK, improving it, and my awesome colleagues are doing this too. For example, we do the PowerPC porting Panama and virtual threads on this, and doing much more. And yeah, that's my day job, and I'm working on supportability tools, including JStall, including tools to redact some data for JDK developers. So just to help my colleagues do their work better.
That sounds amazing. And then I'm going to ask you about like kind of the broader context here. You're clearly doing AI stuff, like you've embraced that. Actually, maybe there's a two-part question. How much are you using AI-assisted tooling for your work? And then what do you see happening in the JVM space? Are people starting to do AI work now? Because it has been Python for so long, right?
I think, yes, I'm using, of course, AI in my work. I think it would be futile to say, oh, no, I'm never using AI, because this is the way I can...
It's all handwritten notes that
It's like written on clay tablets now. I think using AI responsibly is definitely what I do. I wouldn't recommend using it directly in the OpenJK because the code is slightly more complicated than your normal application, and AIs aren't really good at writing C++ at the time. They get confused, as well as we as developers do, because OpenJK is big. It's a large legacy application. And so you can't really use it in this space, but I think Java is coming in with like JVM coming in, LangChain for J being big. And so I think Java gets in a good way. But if I'm honest, I'm just a JK developer, so don't ask me about the Java ecosystem.
Thank you for having this conversation with me, though. This has been fantastic, and we're all going to look forward to JStall. You'll have a blog post about it coming up at some point, right? What's the time frame we can look forward to?
So there's already a blog post out there that is hopefully linked somewhere regarding the basic functionality, and the AI-based prototype will probably be out like in a month or so.
Oh, that's awesome. So we'll find the blog post. We'll put it in the show notes. Thank you for this Fika AI.
Yeah, thank you.